Hey guys, it's Blockchain Brad, and today I'm very excited to talk about a brand new project for me, that is. Obviously, you know I like talking about things that are coming on Neo, and this one certainly is. It's called Concierge.io, and it's led by a very exciting team. You can see three gentlemen before me, and you're going to learn a lot about them in a moment. To the center, we have the CEO. His name is Adam Chaplin. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the channel today.
Lovely. Nice to be here, Brad. Thanks for having us.
No worries, mate. It's great to hear your English accent as well. And obviously, to your right, you have your CTO. That's Paul Spallini. So thanks, Paul, for coming on the channel as well, mate.
Hi, good to be here.
And finally, last but not least, we have Anders Larsen, who is a very important figure in blockchain. He is the senior advisor to this really exciting project. Welcome, Anders, to the channel as well.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, actually.
It's great to have all three of you. So let's talk about what we're here for, and that is the project. What essentially, well, actually, let's get started with a bit about your background. So I do apologise for that. If we could start with you as the CEO, what's your background essentially, Adam, and where did it all start for you?
Well, I got into travel 25 years ago when I left the Royal Marines. I went to Bali for a 2-week holiday. That was the plan. And I've stayed in Asia ever since. So I started working for big hotel groups, big resort groups. And then I went out on my own with Walker's Whiskies, a big partnership we did, and we bought resorts. And we came to Vietnam sort of 6 years ago. We've been online heavily for the last 6 years. We've got travel agencies, booking offices, we've got hostels, we've got hotels, we've got boats. So we're heavily involved in travel at every single level, from sort of service level to selling level to production level to online level. So we know travel very, very well, very, very well. Myself and a gentleman called Steve Hitwell, who's the CMO, have been working together on travel for the last 20 years.
Right, so your experience in the travel background, the travel industry is very strong.
Very, very strong, yes.
Right.
When we saw blockchain and what it could do, we were just blown away by it, and we knew it's like it's sort of built for travel, really. So we're in travel, and we know travel, how to market travel, we know how travel works at every level. So our team is very, very strong on travel.
Awesome, and we're going to find out more about the connections of blockchain. But Paul, what about you, mate? What's your background, and what attracted you to Concierge.io?
I've been in IT now for over 30 years, working on cutting-edge technologies, emerging technologies. I've been on the periphery of blockchain and cryptocurrencies for a number of years. Recently, I came to realize its potential. Then Adam and I were introduced through a mutual friend, and immediately I realized the opportunity and the way that it can actually decentralize what exactly the current structure is.
Right.
Online travel agencies saw the potential, saw how it could really break the monopolies that were present.
Sure. And just to reference you for a moment, your skill sets, do you feel like with your skill sets that you've had prior to this that you're well equipped?
I'm equipped for the man management, the understanding of the technologies at a high level. The detailed programming is something I leave to our developers. We've got an excellent team of developers. I don't get bogged down with the detail. I leave that to them. It's the man management, it's the skill set, the understanding, and the creative utilization of the technology. I've
Definitely.
got an overall view.
And what's clear as well is what makes a great team is that you have different people doing different things, and clearly you've considered that. And going across to you now, Anders, obviously you have a lot of experience as an advisor in many different projects. So what attracted you essentially to Concierge.io?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, and thanks for having us here. And I was very excited about this one from the start because I have been quite selective. I'm advising a little over 10 ICOs now, and I've tried to be very selective in a few criteria. I come from a technology background, and I'll talk more about that later. And I really like that they picked Neo from the start here because I feel that many of the projects that are in the works are actually not going to work, and I'll come back a little bit to that later.
Yes,
so
do.
that was actually how I found them, and then I always try to screen projects with the people, like these people who know the business and understand real customers and can credibly pull a company and a project all the way to the goal, or is it great people who mean well and have a fantastic idea but maybe not have the execution capabilities that it takes? And then I always try to think, is this something that I would use myself?
Right, so you're looking at all the aspects of real utility. But if we could talk about you for a moment, I'm interested to hear about your background as well, Anders.
Yeah, thank you. So I worked 20 years in another industry, in the telecom industry. And so I have the edge that whenever I meet someone, whatever they can say, I can still say, yeah, but you're still using my technology. So I've been part of creating the 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G IoT revolutions. And that actually, I didn't realize that when starting with the blockchain, which I work with full-time now, but it actually has a lot of similarities, both in the ecosystem creation, in the scale thinking, and a lot of the industry dynamics. I'll come back to that a little bit later, but that is my background. So I have like a CTO type background since many years.
It is very good to know, though, that you have entered this not from a business perspective solely, but also with a technological underpinning and foundation. That is going to be key to some of the questions I will ask you later. So, gentlemen on my right, you're off the hook for some of those tough ones. But let's get down into the guts of really what we're here for, and that is to find out exactly what Concierge IO is. What is it, guys? Let's start with you in this sense. You're obviously the CEO, Adam. You, no doubt, know the ins and outs of it. What is it, in a nutshell?
Okay. It's 6 different things, but in a nutshell, it's a 0% commission booking platform for vendors. Okay, and that's really important because at the moment they're being charged between 15 and 45%, and that's of the actual amount they take. So that's like 70 or 80% of their profit margins. It's killing the smaller vendors, sure. The middle market's being smashed, and the only people surviving really are the really big companies. So it's making travel, for want of a better word, boring and expensive. So a 0% commission for a vendor is very attractive. We're being inundated with requests already because obviously that changes their whole business structure. Okay. And now what that will do is obviously that will either increase the service level, or it will give a much cheaper product price to people buying, and that's important for the whole of the industry because at the moment it's being controlled completely by sort of 5 different companies. I'm not going to mention them, but they're being controlled, and the price structure is a monopoly of the highest order really. So that's the first thing it will do. The next thing is saving money is important with holidays. Sure, we're all seduced by price, right? However, with holidays, you have to have a service level. So we've put in a peer-to-peer communication because we're not charging on the platform. We can let the vendor speak to the supplier, or the supplier speak to the person that wants to order online. So you've got a level of communication that's never been had before because the larger companies want you to be separated, them in the middle, so they can charge commission. So they keep you away from that. So your service level drops. So peer-to-peer communication is paramount for service. So we've put that in as well.
Right.
Not everything in holiday is going to be perfect, right? So there's going to be disputes. So that we'll have smart contracts for that on the platform as well. So when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, it'll be an automated system to put the dispute in. Now, I don't know if you saw the reports on TripAdvisor years ago, recently, where a guy got a restaurant to the top of TripAdvisor he didn't even own, just by putting up his own reviews. So a restaurant that didn't even exist was at the top of TripAdvisor. Now, a good company manages their reviews, but the trouble is they're not real reviews. So if we use a smart contract for the reviews on the platform, it means that all the reviews you see will be real. Okay, so again, it makes it much more honest. We're going to use the token, obviously, for rewards and payment programs on the platform. So it will have crypto in it, but we're not going to ignore the rest of the market. And I think this is where a lot of the business models fall down. We're going to take fiat,
right?
Okay, and we're going to take cryptos,
yes.
Because in order to go, and we're not here to just take part. We'd like to win. So in order to get to that sort of situation, we must take all payments. So we're going to put on the platform, the best cryptos, our own, and also fiat money payments. So that's in essence platform will do.
And it's exciting. I mean, obviously you've listed a number of features in there, and if we could go back to the website for a moment and address this to you, Paul, clearly one of the things it states is that you're a global online travel booking marketplace. So let's unpack that a little bit more in the sense of you're a decentralized system, in the sense you're a decentralized travel one-stop shop. So, you know, with that respect, let's talk about the need of it. What was the problem that you found? Obviously, you know, Adam's addressed some of them, but what was the key problem you found?
The main thing is the ability for the 0% commission. With it being centralized, the big boys were able to charge whatever they liked and, in effect, create a monopoly. We are enabling, with the technology, with the decentralization, the ability that the individuals, the travelers, the vendors of any size are operating on a level playing field. And we're removing the monopolies from controlling. They are able to set their own terms and conditions. They're able to remove people who don't abide by those terms and conditions. And it makes it unfair for the smaller properties. And as Adam says, it makes it for a very uninteresting holiday destination or anything of that nature.
Absolutely. So you can see the value points there that you've mentioned. If we can go across now to the tech enders, what is the technology that underpins this, that makes all this possible?
Yeah, so a little bit like I hinted at before, I think that there is a great... Personally, I feel very interested and inspired by the ecosystem approach here, because we have a lot of platforms for the distributed applications available now, and I think that we're really at a crunch point where one or several of these platforms will really begin to dominate.
And now, if I could just interrupt for a moment, though, so we could redress, you know, refocus back into the technology itself. I really wanted to broach Neo because obviously you've chosen Neo, and I wanted to discuss the reasons for that, because you're making it really clear, actually, that, you know, Ethereum is a great product, it's a great blockchain, but it's not the blockchain of choice for this project. So let's find out why.
Exactly. So thanks for saying that. So the point I'm trying to make here is that it's not going to work if it's like 15 TPS. If we're taking Neo then with 1,000 TPS, roadmap to 10,000 and 100,000 TPS, okay, then we're talking. I'm used to designing systems for billions of people. That's where I'm coming from. 100,000 people, that's not even a proof of concept. So I think that the different characteristics here translate into the use case very nicely. So for the scale perspective that Neo provides, for example, then actually makes it possible to build a system that can be used for everyone. And the second aspect then is really the fee structure, that Ethereum transactions have averaged between $0.5 and $4 per transaction during 2018. And while that is low, it's kind of not good enough still, because say that certain use case takes 10 transactions, that can cost $40. Suddenly, it's not really viable anymore. And then a more cost-effective system, such as Neo, is a much more viable option.
Right.
Otherwise, it will not be zero commission. It will be like an expensive system to use.
And as you raise a really good point, it's such an imperative, I think, for the audience to understand why the blockchain for an initiative like this. And you've made it very clear, all of you have, with regard to its speed, you cut out the middlemen, and you also make it, you're reducing the fee costs as well. So simply by those key elements, it makes it viable as a new wave of technology that can be, I guess, utilized for something like a travel marketplace. So let's talk about that in a little bit more detail with regard to key points of that marketplace. So perhaps, Adam, you'd like to address these. You reference in the website about instant booking, seamless integration, and the amalgamation of the marketplace with blockchain. So why are these key points so relevant?
Okay, well, good questions. Well, I wasn't really into cryptocurrency, unlike everybody else in the team. I had a little holding, but I was really into blockchain. I watched a lecture a few years ago, And as soon as I seen the lecture, it turned the button on. I thought blockchain was invented for travel.
Right.
Because when you look at it, it literally is. It fits every box. When you're in travel, you have a huge problem because when you need to record anything, okay, you need people to do that. Okay, they have to contact either side of the chain, the vendor and the supplier. You're in the middle of it. The admin is very heavy. So a smart contract is just a given to make things much easier. Okay, so straight away that was the light went on for me. The people don't trust. The reason they don't use the little providers, they don't trust them. Mm-hmm. Right? They trust Booking.com, for instance, because Booking.com has spent billions of dollars marketing, so know who they are. You can go direct to a supplier. I mean, they have websites of holidays and tours and trips, and you can book, but people don't trust that. But when you have a smart contract, that doesn't matter anymore. So it brings trust into travel. You know, the internet changed how we all communicate, but, you know, blockchain really puts trust into buying things. And right. Travel lacks that because in travel, there's a lot of overselling going on.
Right. Well,
because the person
and Adam, if we could just talk about that for a moment for the audience who may not know what a smart contract is, and more importantly, the automation that comes with this design for the marketplace. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Well, when you book online normally, I mean, basically, when people book with us, they're not going to know it's blockchain.
Right.
All right. The whole idea of this is to make it like any other system they could use. What the blockchain does is record it all. Okay. And what a smart contract does is like the smart contract. The way we're going to use it is if you book online with us, all right, and then you make the booking, that smart contract won't release any payment to the vendor until you're happy and left. All right. So most bookings online, you're paying beforehand or you're putting it down. This way, okay, if you're not happy, that payment doesn't get released. And that's a great, that's a great safety net for you.
Right.
You don't have to know it's blockchain technology. And we're trying to steer away from telling any of our potential clients this because, you know, we've been booking holidays online for 15 years with HTML and PHP. Nobody ever asked us that, you know. We just want to make sure that it runs seamlessly. And the contract brings in a guarantee of trust. And that's what we're using the contract for. And we'll use them in many different ways.
So it's also very user-friendly in that respect as well, in a way we haven't seen. If we could also, we've talked about the zero fee commission, which is very exciting, but let's talk about the fiat in relation to use of cryptocurrencies also. Could you tell us as well, you know, how you plan to integrate fiat and also cryptocurrency use into your platform?
Well, it's more of a question for Paul, really. That
well, Paul, would you want to tell us? You've been quiet over there. How are we going to? If I was a consumer, how could I do both, or either?
How you can do both? We're basically going to be exchanging. Somebody will be making a payment in fiat. There's going to be an exchange mechanism going in. We'll then be utilizing the smart contract, which will then, once probably around 24 hours after the client has actually checked out, we will then release that fiat having been exchanged, or the vendor can actually choose to withdraw in crypto.
I see. So is it fair to say that pretty quickly you're going to have a real utility in your token? Unlike many projects which don't have a utility yet, you're going to have that pretty quickly.
The main backbone of the entire system is going to be our token. This is how we're going to increase the value in it. From an investment perspective, is the utilization of it. We're going to be using it to buy and sell the crypto at either end at various times, because it could be a month or two prior to the actual holiday that somebody puts the fiat in.
Right.
We will that will then be sitting in the smart contract until the vendor has satisfied the client. The smart contract will then release the crypto. At that point, they can either take out the crypto or have it exchanged into fiat.
Awesome. That sounds really, quite fluid in its process. If we could talk about now the incentive scheme. No doubt you've thought about that with loyalty rewards. How is that designed and built into the overall plan? At
the moment, we're still developing that, how exactly it's going to work. We're looking at various models, so it's fluid at the moment.
Okay.
We're working on the alpha. We're dealing with the smart contract as a whole, and the incentives, as I say, are something we're still developing.
Right. So,
but
you are thinking of including them and embedding them into the system.
Oh, definitely, because we want to encourage people to actually use the system, not just from the financial incentives of cheaper holidays or better service. We actually want to incentivize them, and at the moment we don't know whether it's going to be a numerical value of tokens they'll get back. We've got to see how the model works. Also find out exactly what it is they want. So we're going to be using focus groups to actually ensure that we are appealing to our client base.
Sure. Well, Anders, if I could just go across to you for a moment. Obviously, you're an advisor now, and no doubt you know of some of the other advisors. There's quite an impressive list on the website. Just how imperative is it to have a core group of advisors involved in the process?
Yeah, that probably should ask Adam if we've been of use or not. But
don't worry, I will.
I think, thank you. I think that the value that we do bring is that there are a lot of learnings that are actually across ICOs, and that is the type of insights that we can bring. And of course, it is also, networking and outreach and so on, but a lot of those things you can find other ways. And my business partner Joachim and I worked closely with the team. We really tried to bring the best learnings that we've seen from different ICOs into each project. And I think, for example, the translation of the technology into customer value is something that we can do. And it's also, in terms of how to execute the ICO process in a transparent way, and also in a way that it ends well for all parties. It is easier said than done.
Absolutely, but I think you've made it clear that that's of value to have really good quality advisors. Now, Adam, if we could talk about the team itself. Now, you have a very robust team that's not just the advisors, it's a core team. Let's talk about the skill sets that you offer in that team and why the diversity that's there is important.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I sort of mentioned Steve Hickwell at the beginning. I've worked with him for many years. Who's the CMO? He's the best marketer I've ever seen online. Right. And in travel, we've taken companies from literally a box in a corner to a multi-million-dollar company within sort of 18 months, 2 or 3 years. And I've watched Steve do this again and again and again. And whatever you do online, you need a very strong marketing department. We call it smarketing because marketing is sales, right? So it's sales and marketing. Right. And Steve is part of that, and obviously a lifelong friend, and is key to this. I won't tell you what we spent marketing for our pre-ICO, but it wasn't a huge amount, and we knocked it out of the ballpark. And with that came the comments from the Neo group that it was by far the best run ICO so far on Neo, which was nice to hear.
That is
so
nice.
Steve's key. He's for want of a better word, he's key to the whole thing, because without marketing, no matter how good you are, people don't know you're there. There's no point, right?
Right.
So he's sort of on a pedestal, and when I'm away doing other stuff, I know that he can work freely without any sort of guidance off me, and we're always on the same page. So he's key. There's another guy sort of to my left here that I've recently met, but it's got 30 years experience in a field that I have no experience in. So I don't have to be able to fly a plane to get on a plane. So I need somebody here that can really run tech teams. And 30 years experience is probably as long as you can go without being dead, right? So Paul's been doing technical, running technical teams for 30 years from all over the world. He's a very amicable chap. And in Asia, you really have to be very, very polite and sort of do it on the back foot, because you can upset the Asians. They can lose face. So and Paul's idea. So he's got all the attributes that are needed to run a great tech team in Asia. We can scale up here. We're behind us now. We've got a tech team running of 6 to 10. Right. And we can scale to 100 if we need to. So Paul's key for that. So they're the key players, the real key players. Then we go to the finances, because again, that's another skill. We've got a guy called Matthew, who's involved with a company called Relentless 13. That's his,
right.
And he does crypto investments. So we've got to edge the funds. Crypto goes up and down. We've got to edge what we've taken in to make sure we can deliver. And he's going to deal with that. And he's very, very skilled at that, and has done it to the tune of almost, a few $100 million last year. So he knows what he's doing there. So we need to protect the money that's put in crypto. It's great having crypto, but it's a roller coaster ride, and we want to make sure we get to the end here.
Absolutely.
So he's going to, and it won't all be held in crypto. So he knows how to do that, and that's his dedicated job. Then we get to the advisors, which, just to be frank, have been hard work. we met in Hanoi. Okay,
right.
When we were looking, basically, I got hit on LinkedIn all the time by these so-called experts, and I'm just saying, well, how can anybody be an expert in something that's so new? In 10 years' time, fine, but you can't be an expert. And they hit me on LinkedIn, just normally, and spoke to me normally. Can we have a meet? I said, yeah, I'm in Hanoi at the moment. He said, yeah, I'm in Hanoi too. And we're like, no way. So we met, and instantly, the chances. We connected, and we knew straight away we were going to work together. Right. And to be fair to the advisors, they weren't just coming in and saying, give me this or give me that. They've invested in the project too. And I like that.
I think that's a very important point. And what's also important as well, Adam, is that I was researching Anders' history, and clearly he's well known in the space. He's ranked number 6, my understanding is, in the blockchain space for his roles. So that's a significant thing. That's a serious feat that you've achieved, Anders. So again, you have quality in your advisorship as well. Guys, if we could talk about now the user interface, because much is hinged, as you said, Adam, on the quality of the presentation, the marketing. So much of it's key, but obviously the usability is really fundamental too. So what are you guys doing to make it easy for users and consumers to interact and use the service?
Well, we've got in Vietnam, they've got some great blockchain developers that are new, but are very keen to showcase their talent. And we've recruited another guy that I haven't spoken about yet. And I won't tell you his name because it's in Vietnamese and you won't remember. But this guy, he works for the government. He trains people in blockchain, and he checks our work basically and makes sure our flow is correct. So he's the guy overall in charge of making sure that the work's done properly. Right. We've got a young team here that are very keen, obviously, and we can scale up to any size we need. And he's paramount. He's important, and he loves it as well. The difference between in Europe and here is that you get a developer in Europe, they're sort of set in their ways. Where in Vietnam, they're almost desperate to showcase their talent, So it's great to work with them. And Paul's, as I said, Paul's the man for the job, really.
Sure. And also from the usability basis, this is where the advisors really come in, because rather than us making mistakes ourselves, we can actually leverage their experience, their knowledge, in order to provide the best possible interface for our users. Our plan is to make it as simple and as clean as possible. We're learning from our competition as to how they do it, how we can do it better, and ensuring that we're mapping out the flow as best as possible with all of the options in order to ensure that the experience that each user actually has works for them. And we're going to be doing testing on that to ensure that as we go along. And with the team we're going to have the flexibility when we actually find a better way of doing something to actually introduce that. Sure.
And obviously, in the context of this interface, we're talking about things like the web information that's really clear and succinct, but apps is particularly I wanted to talk about. Obviously technology is key, and as will attest to that, but if I wanted to find out more about Concierge.io on my phone, is that going to be something that I can easily do?
When you say find out about us, is that for the ICO or for the actual user interface, the usability? Right,
exactly, for the user interface, so that it expands into different technologies, into different, modes of access. So your app, no doubt, is going to be accessible on phones, I guess is the illusion I'm making.
Well, we're going to be having the main web interface, but we are actually going to also be developing our own DApp as well.
Right.
As opposed to a mobile version of the web app. There are a number of advantages of using a DAP. The fact that it is always available.
Right.
There is the security involved with the DAP itself. It is actually part of the blockchain. So much traffic, merchandising and e-commerce will be done on mobile technology over a standard desktop in the coming years, if it hasn't already surpassed currently. I'm not sure of the current statistics.
Right.
But the utilization of a DAP is critical in giving the power to the users and maintaining the blockchain decentralization rather than just having a mobile web interface.
Sure, and it also explains in your website that you're going to be Facebook compatible, Google compatible. So you've already thought about other current common platforms that exist now and having that interoperability with them.
Yes, there's that interactivity is going to be for the single sign-on initially, so they utilize their existing identification in order to sign on.
Right.
We're going to be exploring potentially messenger interface. There are so many technologies out there, so many methods of communication. We don't want to hit all of them. Because we want to make sure that the actual our focus is on the best viable options and the ones our users actually want.
Sure. And Anders, how have you found, as an advisor, how have you found the feedback generally and in your own as well with regard to observations you've made of the interfaces you've seen?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the interfaces will be simple and easy to use. I have no doubt about that. And I think the feedback that I've received about the project as such is very interesting, because almost everyone say that, yeah, this is something I would like to use. Everyone in the crypto space, of course, nice if we can book and pay for travel with crypto. Who wouldn't want to use that? Right. And then if you also have the things that you can actually trust the reviews, and it's actually cheaper because you don't have the 50% cut from the central party, and I mean, it's very hard not to like. And then comes usually, yeah, but compared with, are there some other similar projects? But then I think it comes very quickly into a technical discussion about whether it will actually work or not. And, and I think you covered a great many of those aspects. I just would like to add one or maybe two more aspects which I feel are very important. One is the eco aspect. It's very important to me personally. I have spent great effort to try to contribute to making a contribution for global warming or climate change, and I feel that aspect is important. And it is important to many people. You want to have eco-friendly travel, for example, and then you don't want to hear that, yeah, but you know, the blockchain consumes electricity rivaling a small country, and that's not good. And I feel that then the proof of stake systems are important, and I like that very much with the approach taken here by the team. I think you raised
a very important point, and I'll just jump in for a moment for those who may not be aware of the proof of work model. And essentially what Anders is explaining is that there is a high consumption or requisite for high energy use for Generation 1 blockchain, so the proof of work. And essentially the NEO blockchain with its DBFT, the Delegated Byzantine Fault Tolerance System, is much lighter in its consumption, much lighter.
Yeah.
So is that, you know,
exactly.
the
yeah, exactly. That is. Thanks for explaining. Absolutely. And then lastly, there is one other aspect. I think that another thing that's kind of a little bit missed out maybe on the first iteration of the smart contract ecosystem is largely the identity management and the government compliance part. Because, of course, we have to remember that what we're trying to build has to be legal. It has to be allowed to be used in preferably the whole world or in the countries where we want to deploy. And that is not so high up on the agenda now, but that is something else that is more part of the NEO and many of the future coming platforms as well, to make a bigger effort to be government compliant, and I think that is important as well. It's important both for reputation, for having verifiable reputation, and it's also important from a government compliance perspective.
Yes, and also, Anders, just to jump in to support you there, and NEO is well known already for its action plan to roll out compliance and regulation strategies. They've also consulted many different companies in different continents to make sure they do so. In Asia, particularly, and in even in the UK, they're well known with a company called QRC. So they certainly are doing a lot in that respect. Yeah,
exactly, and I think that so that will further benefit Concierge in this case, that they can kind of ride on that development that is happening, and I think it is. I believe it will happen faster on NEO than on Ethereum. Then maybe it will come as well on the other platforms as well. I hope so, but I feel that is an important aspect to consider.
I think you're raising an extremely valid point. If I could just ask you, just on that note, in terms of blockchain readiness, because it's something that I get asked a lot about in my role with regard to initiatives like marketplace projects. Because there's often the question is posed, that's great, the project's fantastic, but is the blockchain ready for this kind of project? And you're certainly the person to answer this, Anders.
Yeah, I think it is, and it is a very important, a very relevant question. And like the simple example I just took earlier, the scale isn't there today on Ethereum. I want to say it again, I love Ethereum. I have Ethereum in my portfolio, but it doesn't scale beyond the proof of concept for this kind of application. It just doesn't. It's not my opinion. Sure. This is like calculation, mathematics.
But does NEO currently scale for this kind of magnitude?
Yeah, I think it does. It's a big difference between 15 and 1,000 today, and then with a 10,000, 100,000 roadmap, yes, it does scale up to hundreds of millions of people, and then I think we're talking. Then it is more than a proof of concept. Then it's something that can actually be used without being cost preventive, scale preventive, speed preventive, at least. And then I think the eco and the government aspects are important as well. So these are the 5 aspects that need to be met, which aren't really in a matter of opinion. It just has to work.
Sure.
And I think it is ready. Yeah, I think so. On that's at least my assessment right now. And of course, there's a lot of new platforms coming as well. I'm not married to any coin here, or any platform or anything like that. I'm just observing that there are 2 platforms which are really production ready today, and I feel that's Ethereum and NEO. And then of course there's a lot of new platforms coming that make great promises, and I hope that they will all be successful in the future, but they're not here today.
I appreciate your honesty on that, and I think it's important that you've raised your awareness of prospective blockchain initiatives and projects, because no doubt you'll be all watching for that, as you evolve. You don't necessarily mean that you're beholden to every single blockchain as you develop it as a business. And if we could talk about that a bit more, Adam, you're just out of shot slightly there, mate, but if we could talk about partners for a moment, because with every great project it requires backing, but I wanted to talk to you more about the future in this respect. No doubt you're consulting different investors in different ways. No doubt there's a lot of enterprise interest. So how's that going? Enterprise partner potential.
As far as partners go, I mean, for us, the most important partners that we can bring on board are obviously people that own large hotel groups, tour groups, people involved in the industry, and that includes sort of flight companies. But real partners we're looking at are sort of channel managers that have already huge coverage, and bringing them on board. They've already got 40,000 hotels on their channels, and we take them on board in one go. We're also looking at some of the other blockchain projects that sort of have synergy with us. Winding Tree is something that would really sort of work with our platform,
right,
without sort of stealing our thunder. And we're also looking at the really big boys for credibility: Hilton's, your Marriott's, Sheraton's, your Radisson's, your Four Seasons. They want to see it working first. But we have actually managed to partner up through APT in Vietnam with FLC, which is the biggest company in Vietnam. And we've also partnered through APT Travel with the biggest resort company, which is Vinpearl. So we've got some big heavy hitters on board. Financially, we've sort of we put skin in the game ourselves, and we've had other people put money in, and obviously we've done the pre-ICO.
Yes,
we're not, we're not struggling that way. So there's lots of partnerships coming. People want to see the alpha finish first for the bigger companies. The more high risk stuff was done early days. Obviously, I saw that the Neo took sort of $90,000 on their first sort of partnerships.
Right.
I think we took about 250,000. So
sure. But it is really exciting, just to interject there for a moment, that you are having these real world, I guess, industry related companies, particularly these centralized companies that want to jump on board and really support your project. That's really exciting for not only the user, but also, you know, potential investors who are considering it in the next phase of your ICO. So let's talk about that now, Paul. If you could tell us a bit more. You're at the ICO, you're in a phase of the ICO process right now. You had your whitelist and pre-sale all completed and sold out, which was outstanding. You're about to move into your crowd sale. So how's everything going and how are you feeling about the process?
We're incredibly confident. We sold out both our whitelist and our pre-ICO within about 7 hours in total. We were very happy with that. We are currently increasing our marketing through various channels. Our actual sale starts on the 31st of March. 31st of March. And my main aim is to actually have the alpha up and running with a projected start date of the 20th of March. So people will actually be able to see exactly what it is we're looking to do at an early stage, so they're not just buying into an idea. This is actually going to be something which they can actually book, they can actually use their crypto. Or, I think at this stage we're only going to be using our CGE token.
Right.
And we'll actually be able to book a hotel. So this will be a real world alpha that we're actually going to be putting out there with actual hotels, with actual rooms that can be booked, can be stayed in. So it's taking it out of the realm of vaporware or ideas into actual utilization, which for an investor, I feel is incredibly important in that they can actually, if they choose to, use their existing crypto if they were lucky enough to get some within the whitelist.
Paul, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I suppose it's because as a traveller myself, as an Aussie, we all love travel. One of the most well-travelled countries in the world. It's so exciting to know that we can actually use a crypto in the real world for utilitarian purposes. We are so busy hearing about investment uses and use cases right now where they're just a hodl. But you really are, you know, advocating for the non-hodl approach, you know, to actually use for real-world purpose.
Sure. It takes us into the realm of the real world. As you say, as an Aussie, I'm a consummate traveller myself. Mm-hmm. I love it. It does take it into the realm of people being able to use it. But we're not limiting ourselves to just the crypto marketplace, just in that not on the first alpha stage, but within the beta, the ability for people to actually be able to use fiat and for the vendors to be able to take the crypto out into fiat, because we are still in a fiat world. We're still very much a new technology as far as the rest of the world is concerned.
Absolutely.
We're saying that how it works, they don't really care. They want to be able to book a holiday, get a holiday, you know, get the products that they've actually paid for. And we're hoping to be able to bridge that gap between the crypto world and the fiat world.
Very exciting. You're going to do that very soon, starting in March. So, Adam, could you tell us a bit more about the tokenomics? I looked at them briefly. They look really good. There's 100 million total in the total supply. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we felt that a lot of the other ICOs coming on board were just too many tokens. I think 100,000. You know, it's a good number. Mm-hmm. People have sort of seen great returns on that number. So 100,000 is plenty. We're putting in
100 million. 100 million.
Sorry.
Yeah,
100 million.
I was going to say 100,000. That's just too good to be true.
Out there, right? Yeah, put your teeth back in. 100 million. It's a great figure. They're not all going to be on the market straight away, but 65 million will be pretty quickly on the market. We've obviously retained some for team. sort of 15%, and then 20%. So in the future, we need to develop our new stuff. We have effectively money there to do it in the tokens, and we ourselves have some tokens for the work we put in.
Yes, I noticed you've got 20% allocated for R&D, which is really fundamental to the longevity of your project.
Correct, and hopefully, you know, God willing, in a fair wind, we will increase that the token price over time. So that will run for quite some time. That 20%. Sure. Obviously, the early investors got the best price. When it goes out to the full ICO, it's still a pretty good price.
Right.
It's still something that we can, you know, we're working on the tokenomics to increase that price as quickly as possible. We're not just here to sort of create a product and hopefully then sort of run it. We all the time we're looking to put value into it to increase the price of the tokens. Sure. How long that takes, nobody can say. But
well, what is interesting, and what is interesting also, Adam, sorry to interrupt again, but I guess, you know, it's exciting to hear about your project, I have to admit. And there's a likeness with NEO in your overall token number, because it's exactly the same. You have 100 million, as did NEO, and we all know the prices of NEO right now. And that's not to allude to the value points potential of your own, but certainly we can see that there is potential is determined by, you know, usership. It's determined by popularity and sentiment markets. And there's no question, again, that your market in and of itself is something that is always going to be existent. It's always going to be in demand. So the shift from centralized models into a decentralized system is really a case of efficiency. But as you said, Adam, before, is that at the end of the day, people want to travel. They really don't care as long as it's cheap and affordable and they can do it. And you're arguing you can do it better than current systems right now.
Yeah, we're not just dealing with let's do it cheaper, because I don't mind paying a little bit more if I'm going to get the service. So if you can get champagne taste on a lemonade budget, then you've really hit the market running, right?
Right.
So we're looking at providing a better service for less money, and the tokenomics around that will be rewarded for using, obviously, if you use crypto directly, that's great, but the tokenomics really come into play straight away. So there's a value in our token that I think lots of people can see. Some of the other ICOs I've looked at, I've just gone, where does that monetize? How does that actually work? You know, where this one, it's quite easy to see. Okay, I can see where the token value will go up.
Right.
I can see if they're getting traffic on the platform, how it will work. And people not in crypto, we've got a lot of people that haven't been in crypto that are excited about this because they can understand this. It's easy, you know.
Well, perfect segue for Paul. I did want to talk about competitors. And I'm not aware of any, certainly in the blockchain space, but no doubt you've studied them and checked. Are there any competitors that are doing anything like this?
I think there are a number of them. As we've already mentioned, Winding Tree, not so much as a direct competitor, but a potential partner in the future. Mm-hmm. There are competitors out there. We are aware that this is such a large market. I think it's $2 or $3 trillion a year are spent within the travel marketplace. Mm-hmm. The market as a whole is more than open to having multiple competitors. Right. And I know from my history in, many years ago, I was worked for my father in the restaurant business. Actually having a large number of restaurants in a small area actually increases the overall spend for each restaurant, right, because you're actually drawing people in. So we actually welcome competition because it will then start to decentralize and break down the monopolies that are present currently. The only companies that are going to suffer, I believe, are going to be those central companies unless they evolve. Right. We encourage, we want the entire industry to evolve, and the marketplace as a whole is more than capable of handling any competition.
Absolutely. Does it surprise you in that respect also, and as perhaps you look like you're keen to answer this, so does it surprise you that some of these centralized companies, specifically in this industry, aren't doing this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I just thought to add, I mean, there are a few companies, there's, for example, Blockchain and so on. So I think it's very good, like you said, Paul and Adam, it's like if you're alone on one business case that you should be worried, because that maybe means that it's not such a good idea. So it's actually good to see that there are multiple companies, and they are kind of complementing a little bit, overlapping a little bit, which is fine. Solutions are a little different and so on and so forth. That's all good. I think that the main competitor is really the other industry. It's the traditional 10-year-old or how old they are internet companies like Booking.com, Agoda.com, and so on. And it's actually good to have a lineup of blockchain-based companies that are trying to attack this, because then there will be synergies later, there will be some overlap, and it will strengthen the industry as a whole, making the industry more competitive. So I think that's actually very good and promising, and I hope there will come more companies like this.
Yes, and I think you raise a great point that it'll allow for the shift via mass adoption, enable mass adoption simply by sheer numbers of companies adopting this approach.
I think so too. And then the other question are, why aren't the traditional companies doing that? That's very interesting, and I think having a lot of experience from the corporate sector, there are benefits of being big. But there are disadvantages also. And the main disadvantage is that you tend to be slower. You tend to be slower than the people who are like a few guys who are passionate about what they do, and they have about 10 developers sitting behind you, and you can take decision immediately and move immediately and just execute. While if you have a $1 billion company or a $10 billion company, you are so careful. You need to workshop your strategies and talk to the board and the shareholders maybe, and weigh the pros and cons. Will you cannibalize your business or will you not, and so on and so forth.
And as you raise a great point,
a year has passed.
Absolutely, you raise a very valid point with that in that respect. So thank you for making that clear, gentlemen. If we could talk about one thing from each of you with regard to the roadmap. Now obviously 2018 is a very exciting year for you. Let's start with you, Paul. You raised a really important date with March being the beginning with your BetaNet. So let's talk about an exciting time that you can think of ahead in 2018 for Concierge.io.
Exciting times is just getting to grips with the blockchain, putting it out there, seeing it being utilized in a utilitarian way.
Yes.
Can't wait to actually start seeing our first clients actually using it. Something that I think we're all excited for is that our first client, our first real world person. So that's one of the key things. And actually seeing what it is that people want. We're planning on using community-based feature voting to actually see what it is people want. We're planning on using the community we've actually developed and continue to bring in their valuable input. We've got our key advisors, but actually having that number of evangelists, of people who are actually on the ground, who believe in the project, telling us what we want, because a lot of the time we don't necessarily know specifically and can get valuable information from those people. So it's working with the community, getting our first client to book that first room. My focus currently, as I say, is the 20th of March, and then the ICO itself, and then from there moving to the beta. So those would be my key roles and excitement for the coming year.
Right, well you certainly passed with 1 point there. Well done. That was really, I think, well put. What about you, Adam? If we can reduce it down to 1 point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the most exciting thing for me is on the roadmap is when we get when we get to completion at the end of the roadmap, when we've actually got tours, trips, hotels, and holiday exchanges on there with property. I've never seen that before actually completed. So if you want to get, that's a lot further down the line, but there's my focus on that. And when I can see that working on the platform, I'll be a very happy chap.
Awesome. I think that was well said. What about you, Anders? What are you looking forward to seeing sometime this year with Concierge.io?
Yeah, exactly. My wife is asking me yesterday here, when can we go on the first trip with this concierge on this concierge thing? So yeah, that was my main question also here. When can I travel? So I'm going to turn it back one more time, Adam and Paul. When can I book my first trip with my wife?
Well, certainly in the next 10 years, no problem.
Well, you're all very lucky because you have tokens already, no doubt. You know, it's for us, we have to. For the other people who haven't got them yet, we have to wait and buy them in the crowd sale. So, you know, that's something to consider. You'll be able to access it.
Yeah.
So just answer the question.
So please, so when is it? When can I go on my first trip?
Well, the alpha version is ready in 2 weeks, and we're testing. So, God willing and a fair wind, without shooting the CTO to my left, we're looking at sort of, March, just getting into end of March, sort of April time at the very latest.
Yeah,
right.
So it's fantastic. So it's very near term. And that's what I told her also yesterday. So good that I said the right thing. And I think that is also the exciting thing for me. Just to answer the question. So for me, in all my projects that I'm involved in, I try to focus not on the token price and all this thing. That will sort out itself. If the platform works and there is real customers with real interest and real marketing, so that people know about it, the price will follow. And that's what I'm excited about, that this is real. It's not just a vision or an idea. This is something that we can actually use.
Right, and I will take you to task on your plan to go and do one of those very first trips, and I'll expect an Instagram pic of somewhere in the world with your family. But gentlemen, on behalf of all the people who wanted to know more about Concierge.io, it's been an absolute privilege to hear all of your different perspectives on this exciting business. Adam, thank you for your knowledge and prowess as the CEO. You are leading a very exciting team. Paul, as the CTO, and also with your business savvy, thank you so much for illuminating some of the business constructs, and as with many of your skill sets, but particularly with your technological background. Thank you for explaining why Neo is so key to the technological underpinnings of this very robust marketplace that is to be a very exciting venture in the travel industry. So Adam, Paul, and Anders, thank you once again for your time. Is there anything you'd like to finally add?
I want to thank you very much for the service you are doing, Brad, to the community. I watched great many of your videos. You always bring very interesting people, and I love your approach. So, thank you for what you are doing to the crypto community. It is actually very important, and I like it a lot. And I'm honored to be here today.
Thank you so much. What about you, Adam?
I'd like to, I'd like to echo that as well. I mean, we've watched you more than you know.
I'm really surprised, actually.
We've watched an awful lot of channels, and obviously we endorse Neo, but we've watched you, and you're by a long way our favourite. And we're not just saying that,
Thank you very much.
So thank you for having us. Thank you for having. You've been a pleasure to talk to.
Likewise.
And look forward to seeing you in Vietnam shortly.
Absolutely.
That's not a bribe. You can pay my tokens.
Absolutely.
You can come over.
Absolutely.
And, we'll at least throw out the red carpet for you. How's that?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well,
Thanks, Brad.
Not a problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.